You know that feeling when you step off the plane in Tokyo and suddenly realize your iPhone looks ancient compared to the vending machine selling hot ramen at 3 a.m.? Welcome to Japan, where everything you thought you knew about normal gets turned upside down, shaken like a Polaroid picture, and served back to you with a polite bow and a receipt longer than your grocery list. But here's the million-dollar question that keeps every budget traveler awake at night. Can you actually survive in Japan on just $800 a month? The land where a single piece of premium tuna can cost more than your rent back home. Well, grab your chopsticks and hold on to your hat, because we're about to find out if you can live like a local without selling a kidney on the black market. Japan isn't just a country. It's like stepping into a parallel universe where trains apologize for being 30 seconds late, where you can buy underwear from a vending machine at 2 a.m., and where the customer service is so good, it'll make you question everything you thought you knew about human kindness. This isn't your typical backpacker destination where you can survive on street food and hostel dorms. This is Japan, where even the convenience store food looks like it belongs in a Michelin-starred restaurant. The numbers alone will make your head spin. We're talking about a country where the average monthly rent in Tokyo can easily hit $2,000. Where a single apple can cost $3, and where a taxi ride that would cost you $10 in New York might set you back $50. Yet, somehow, millions of people not only survive here but thrive, living full, rich lives without breaking the bank. The secret? They've cracked a code that most tourists never even know exists. So, what makes Japan so special that people are willing to navigate through a maze of unwritten rules, bow at precise angles, and learn the difference between 17 different types of ramen just to call this place home? Maybe it's the way the country seamlessly blends 2,000-year-old temples with skyscrapers that touch the clouds. Maybe it's the fact that you can lose your wallet on a busy Tokyo street and have it returned with all the cash still inside. Or maybe it's simply because Japan offers something that's becoming increasingly rare in our modern world: a society that actually works. This isn't going to be your typical travel guide filled with generic recommendations about visiting Mount Fuji and eating sushi. We're going deeper than that. We're talking about the real Japan. The one where salarymen sleep standing up on trains, where convenience store clerks treat a $2 purchase like you're buying a diamond ring, and where the concepts of personal space and social harmony have been elevated to an art form that would make Swiss clockmakers jealous. The archipelago nation stretches across 4 main islands, each with its own personality and quirks. You've got Honshu, the main stage where Tokyo and Osaka duke it out for the title of most overwhelming city. Hokkaido in the north, where the snow falls like powdered sugar and the seafood tastes like the ocean decided to show off. Kyushu in the south, where the hot springs are so good they'll make you forget you have problems, and Shikoku, the smallest main island that somehow manages to pack more temples per square mile than anywhere else on Earth. But geography is just the stage setting for the real show: the people. Japanese society operates on a level of mutual respect and consideration that can be both inspiring and absolutely exhausting for newcomers. This is a country where being 5 minutes early is considered on time, where making noise while eating noodles is not just acceptable, but actually encouraged, and where the concept of personal responsibility is so deeply ingrained that people will spend 20 minutes looking for the perfect trash can rather than litter. The history reads like a greatest hits album of human civilization, from samurai warriors who treated swordcraft like poetry to isolation periods that lasted longer than most empires to a post-war economic boom that had the rest of the world scratching their heads wondering how a country with virtually no natural resources had become the world's second-largest economy. Each era left its mark, creating a cultural layer cake so complex that anthropologists are still trying to figure out all the ingredients. And then there's the modern reality. The urban centers pulse with an energy that makes New York look sleepy. Tokyo alone houses more people than all of Canada, yet somehow manages to function with the precision of a Swiss watch. The trains don't just run on time. They run so precisely that the station attendants check their watches against the arrivals. The city never sleeps, but it's polite about it. Even the nightlife districts maintain a level of order that would make German engineers weep with joy. But step outside these neon-lit metropolitan areas, and you'll find a completely different Japan. Rural communities where the pace of life moves to the rhythm of rice-growing seasons, where everyone knows everyone, and where traditions that date back centuries are still practiced not because they're tourist attractions, but because they're simply part of daily life. These are the places where you can still find farmers who can tell you the weather for the next week just by looking at the clouds, and where the concept of rushing somewhere is as foreign as putting pineapple on pizza. Now, let's talk money. Specifically, how to not spend all of it. The idea of living in Japan on $800 a month sounds about as realistic as training a goldfish to fetch your newspaper, but here's where things get interesting. While Japan has a reputation for being expensive, it's also a country where efficiency and value are treated like religious principles. The trick isn't having more money, it's knowing where to spend the money you have. Accommodation is where most people's budgets go to die. In Tokyo, a decent apartment can cost more per month than most people make in a year. But here's where local knowledge becomes your best friend. Capsule hotels, those space-age pods that look like something out of a science fiction movie, typically run about $20 to $30 per night. Do the math, and you're looking at $600 to $900 per month for accommodation that includes everything from Wi-Fi to a personal television. Sure, your living space will be smaller than most American walk-in closets, but it's clean, safe, and right in the heart of the action. Share houses offer another option that most tourists never consider. These are not your college dorm experiences. We're talking about well-maintained properties where young professionals and international students split costs. Monthly rent in a decent share house can run anywhere from $300 to $500, leaving you with money for the important things, like figuring out why there are 47 different types of Kit Kats in the convenience store. Then there's food, the category where Japan will either bankrupt you or feed you better than you've ever been fed in your life, depending on how smart you shop. A meal at a high-end restaurant can easily cost $200 per person, but the same ingredients prepared with the same attention to quality will cost you $3 at a convenience store. Japanese convenience stores, or konbini, as the locals call them, are like portals to a parallel universe where fast food actually tastes good and looks like it was prepared by someone who cares about your well-being. A typical konbini meal, maybe some onigiri rice balls, a small salad, and a hot coffee, will run you about $5 and provide better nutrition than most restaurant meals back home. These aren't your average gas station hot dogs. We're talking about food that's prepared fresh multiple times per day, using ingredients that would make organic food enthusiasts weep with joy. The rice balls alone come in varieties that could keep you interested for months: tuna mayo, pickled plum, grilled salmon, and combinations that sound weird but taste like someone spent years perfecting the flavor balance. Transportation is another area where Japan either destroys budgets or provides incredible value, depending on your approach. The famous JR Pass, which gives unlimited travel on Japan Railways for a set period, costs around $280 for a week. For tourists hitting multiple cities, it's a steal. But if you're staying put in one area, local transportation can be surprisingly affordable. Monthly commuter passes in most cities run $50–$100, giving you unlimited access to trains and buses that run with clockwork precision. The real secret weapon for budget living in Japan is understanding the rhythm of Japanese retail. Convenience stores mark down prepared food after 8 p.m., sometimes cutting prices by 30 to 50%. Supermarkets have specific times when they discount fresh produce and prepared meals. Department store basement food courts, known as depachika, offer restaurant-quality prepared foods at reasonable prices, especially near closing time. But let's be real about the challenges. This isn't backpacking through Southeast Asia where you can charm your way into cheap accommodations and street food costs pennies. Japan demands a level of planning and cultural awareness that can be overwhelming for newcomers. The language barrier isn't just about communication. It's about understanding a completely different way of thinking about personal space, social obligations, and daily interactions. Now, let's talk about food in a way that'll make your taste buds book the next flight to Tokyo. Japanese cuisine isn't just about sushi and ramen, although those two alone could keep you entertained for years. This is a culture that has elevated the act of eating into something approaching religious experience, where the presentation matters as much as the taste and where seasonal ingredients are treated with the reverence other cultures reserve for precious metals. Ramen culture in Japan operates on levels of complexity that would make wine connoisseurs feel like amateurs. Each region has its own style, each shop has its own secret recipes, and each bowl tells a story about the person who made it. Tokyo-style ramen tends toward lighter, chicken-based broths that somehow manage to be both delicate and deeply satisfying. Osaka prefers richer, pork-based tonkotsu broths that are so thick they coat the noodles like edible velvet. Sapporo takes things in a completely different direction with miso-based broths that provide comfort on a molecular level. But here's what most tourists miss: the ritual of eating ramen in Japan. You don't casually stroll into a ramen shop and order like you're at McDonald's. Many shops use vending machines for ordering, which sounds impersonal but actually serves a purpose. It lets the chefs focus entirely on cooking while eliminating the language barrier. You insert your money, press buttons with pictures of different ramen types, and hand your ticket to the counter. The whole process is designed to be efficient, but there's an art to it that regulars understand. The slurping thing isn't just for show. It's actually functional. Drawing air through the noodles while eating them helps cool them down and enhances the flavors. It also shows appreciation for the chef's work. The louder you slurp, the more you're complimenting the food. Try explaining that to your mother after a lifetime of being told not to make noise while eating. Sushi culture operates on an entirely different wavelength. Forget everything you think you know about sushi from mall food courts and all-you-can-eat buffets. Real sushi in Japan is about showcasing the fish, not drowning it in mayo and calling it a Philadelphia roll. The rice is seasoned and served at body temperature, the fish is cut to complement its natural flavors, and the whole experience is choreographed like a ballet between chef and customer. Izakayas represent the social heart of Japanese food culture. These are not restaurants in the Western sense. They're more like neighborhood gathering places where people go to decompress after work, share small plates of food, and drink enough to make the next day's meetings bearable. The food is designed to complement alcohol, with lots of grilled items, pickled vegetables, and dishes that encourage sharing and conversation. The izakaya experience captures something essential about Japanese social life. During the day, social interactions are formal, structured, and governed by complex rules about hierarchy and respect. But after work, in the warm glow of an izakaya, those rules relax. Colleagues become friends, bosses become human beings, and the rigid social structure that governs daylight hours melts away like ice in hot sake. Vending machines in Japan deserve their own anthropological study. There are over 5 million of them scattered across the country, selling everything from hot coffee to cold beer, from umbrellas to underwear. But the food vending machines are where things get interesting. You can buy hot ramen, fresh sandwiches, and even full meals from machines that would put most restaurant kitchens to shame. The quality is consistently high because the turnover is so rapid. Items rarely sit for more than a few hours. Then there are the unwritten rules about Japanese food culture that can trip up newcomers. Never stick your chopstick straight up in your rice. It resembles incense at funerals and is considered deeply disrespectful. Don't pass food from chopstick to chopstick. Again, too similar to funeral rituals. Do clean your plate completely. Leaving food suggests the portion was too large or you didn't enjoy it. And yes, you're supposed to lift your rice bowl to your mouth when eating, despite what your Western etiquette training might tell you. Japanese convenience stores, or konbini, operate as the unofficial community centers of modern Japan. These are not just places to buy snacks and magazines. They're full-service establishments where you can pay bills, send packages, buy concert tickets, and eat meals that would put most restaurants to shame. The major chains, 7-Eleven, Lawson, and Family Mart, compete not just on convenience, but on food quality, creating a situation where your midnight snack run might yield better food than your dinner reservation. The seasonal nature of Japanese cuisine means that menus change constantly to reflect what's fresh and available. Spring brings cherry blossom-flavored everything. Kit Kats, Starbucks drinks, traditional sweets that taste like eating springtime itself. Summer means shaved ice desserts and cold noodle dishes that provide relief from humidity so thick you could practically swim through it. Fall delivers sweet potato flavors and warming broths that prepare you for winter. Winter brings hot pot season and comfort foods that make the short days bearable. But let's shift gears and talk about the elephant in the room. Or rather, the incredibly polite, well-dressed elephant that bows before speaking and never makes eye contact unless absolutely necessary. Japanese social rules operate on a level of complexity that makes chess look like tic-tac-toe, and understanding them isn't just about being polite. It's about not accidentally offending people who are too polite to tell you you're being offensive. The tipping situation alone will scramble your brain if you're coming from a tipping culture. In Japan, leaving a tip isn't just unnecessary, it's actually insulting. The logic goes that excellent service is simply expected, not something that requires additional payment. Trying to tip can result in staff chasing you down the street to return your forgotten money, leading to confused exchanges where you're insisting they keep money they're insisting they don't want. Masking culture in Japan existed long before COVID made it a global phenomenon. Here, wearing a mask isn't about protection from specific diseases. It's about social consideration. If you have a cold, you wear a mask to avoid spreading it. If you're having a bad skin day, you wear a mask for privacy. If you simply don't feel like showing facial expressions to the world, you wear a mask for anonymity. The practice is so ingrained that many people feel naked without a mask in certain situations. Public transportation etiquette could fill an entire manual. Talking on your phone while on a train is considered incredibly rude. So rude that most trains have announcements reminding passengers to keep their phones on silent and avoid conversations. The priority seating system operates on an honor code that actually works because social pressure in Japan is more effective than most legal systems elsewhere. Eating on trains is generally frowned upon unless you're on a long-distance journey, and even then you're expected to be discreet about it. The Boeing system alone could drive you to therapy if you try to master all its nuances. There's the casual nod for acknowledging service staff, the 15-degree bow for thanking someone, the 30-degree bow for apologizing or showing deep respect, and the 45-degree bow for situations so formal that most foreigners will never encounter them. Get the angle wrong and you might accidentally be communicating something you didn't intend. Bow too deeply and you might seem sarcastic. Don't bow deep enough and you might seem dismissive. Bathroom etiquette reaches levels of complexity that suggest the Japanese have spent centuries perfecting the art of not making anyone uncomfortable about basic bodily functions. The toilet slippers exist because regular slippers are too contaminated for bathroom use. But you have to remember to change back when you leave, or you'll be walking around advertising your bathroom visit to everyone you meet. The bidet controls on modern toilets offer more options than most car dashboards, with buttons for different spray pressures, temperatures, and angles that can turn a simple bathroom visit into an engineering challenge. Gift giving operates according to rules so complex that department stores offer wrapping services that require advanced degrees in origami. The value of the gift must be appropriate to the relationship. The wrapping must be perfect, and the presentation ritual involves specific phrases and gestures that vary depending on the occasion. Receiving a gift requires its own set of responses, including the proper level of surprise, gratitude, and promises to reciprocate at an appropriate future date. The shoes-off culture extends beyond just homes to include many restaurants, some shops, and traditional buildings. But it's not just about removing shoes. It's about doing it correctly, arranging them properly and wearing appropriate socks because everyone will see them. The slipper system in many places adds another layer of complexity, with different slippers for different areas and rules about when to change them that can confuse even long-term residents. Personal space in Japan operates on different principles than most Western cultures. Physical contact is minimal. Handshakes are rare. Hugging is almost non-existent between casual acquaintances, and even accidental contact on crowded trains is met with immediate apologies. Yet, somehow, people manage to pack into train cars at rush hour with a density that would violate fire codes in other countries, all while maintaining a bubble of psychological privacy that makes the physical crowding bearable. The concept of reading the air, understanding unspoken social cues and expectations, is fundamental to Japanese social interaction. It's not enough to listen to what people say. You have to understand what they're not saying, what they might be feeling, and what they need without them having to ask for it directly. This creates a social dynamic where much communication happens through implication, suggestion, and subtle signals that can be completely invisible to outsiders. Now, let's talk about something that might make you blush, might make you laugh, or might make you book a flight immediately. The fascinating world of dating and relationships in Japanese society. This isn't your typical swipe-right culture where everything happens at lightning speed and commitment is as rare as a unicorn wearing a business suit. Japanese dating operates according to a social script that's been refined over generations, where the pace is more marathon than sprint, and where concepts like taking things slow have been elevated to an art form. The traditional omiai system, formal matchmaking arrangements, still exists alongside modern dating apps, creating a dual-track system where some couples meet through algorithms while others meet through introductions so formal they require resume exchanges. The gender dynamics in Japan present a complex picture that defies simple explanations. Traditional expectations still influence many relationships, with concepts of distinct gender roles that can seem either refreshingly clear or frustratingly rigid depending on your perspective. Yet these traditional frameworks coexist with modern realities where women comprise nearly half the workforce and independence is increasingly valued alongside partnership. Host clubs and hostess bars represent a unique aspect of Japanese nightlife that serves functions that might not be immediately obvious to outsiders. These aren't strip clubs or escort services. They're entertainment venues where conversation, attention, and emotional connection are the primary commodities being sold. Clients pay premium prices for the experience of being listened to, flattered, and made to feel special by attractive staff members who are skilled in the art of making people feel valued. The host club phenomenon particularly illuminates something interesting about Japanese society: the commodification of emotional labor and social connection. In a culture where personal relationships are often formal and emotionally restrained, these venues provide a space where people can experience warmth, attention, and validation that might be difficult to find in everyday social interactions. It's expensive therapy disguised as entertainment, where the therapeutic relationship is clearly defined and financially compensated. Dating culture varies dramatically between urban and rural areas. Tokyo dating operates at a pace and complexity that can make New York seem laid back, with options ranging from traditional coffee dates to elaborate group activities that require planning committees and budget spreadsheets. Rural dating often involves more community involvement, where relationships develop under the watchful eyes of families and neighbors who have known each other for generations. The concept of kawaii, cuteness, influences dating culture in ways that can seem either charming or infantilizing, depending on your cultural background. This isn't just about physical appearance. It's about behavior, communication styles, and social presentation that emphasizes youth, innocence, and playfulness as positive traits in romantic partners. Marriage expectations in Japan are undergoing rapid changes that reflect broader social transformations. The traditional model of husband as breadwinner and wife as homemaker is increasingly challenged by economic realities that require dual incomes and changing attitudes about gender roles. Yet wedding culture remains elaborately formal, with ceremonies that can cost more than most people's annual salaries and involve rituals that blend Shinto traditions with Western customs in ways that create uniquely Japanese celebrations. The decline in marriage and birth rates has become a national concern that influences government policies and social programs designed to encourage relationships and family formation. Dating apps receive government endorsements, matchmaking services receive public funding, and employers are encouraged to provide dating support for their workers as a matter of national economic security. International relationships add another layer of complexity, where cultural differences in communication styles, family expectations, and life goals can create challenges that go beyond simple language barriers. The experience of dating as a foreigner in Japan involves navigating not just individual preferences, but cultural expectations about appropriate behavior, relationship progression, and long-term commitments that might be completely different from what you're used to. The nightlife districts like Kabukicho in Tokyo or Shinchi in Osaka represent concentrated entertainment zones where different rules apply and social interactions follow different scripts than daytime society. These areas serve as pressure release valves for a culture that maintains strict social order during business hours, providing spaces where formality can be relaxed and social experimentation is more acceptable. Let's shift from matters of the heart to matters of the calendar, the festivals and traditions that mark the passage of time in Japan and provide windows into cultural values that have survived centuries of social change. Japanese festivals, or matsuri, are not just parties with cultural themes. They're community-defining events that bring together generations of families, and neighborhoods and celebrations that can be simultaneously ancient and thoroughly modern. Cherry blossom season, or sakura, represents perhaps the most internationally recognized of Japanese traditions, but experiencing it in Japan reveals layers of meaning that tourist brochures rarely capture. Hanami, flower viewing, involves much more than taking Instagram photos under pretty trees. It's about the Japanese aesthetic concept of mono no aware, the bittersweet awareness of the impermanence of all things, embodied in flowers that bloom magnificently and then fade within days. The hanami parties that take place in parks across Japan during cherry blossom season reveal social dynamics that operate according to complex rules about space, timing, and appropriate behavior. Groups stake out spots under the best trees hours or even days in advance, with elaborate systems for claiming and maintaining territory that would impress military strategists. The parties themselves blend formality with relaxation, where business colleagues can share drinks and conversation in settings that would be impossible in office environments. Spring festivals extend beyond cherry blossoms to include events that celebrate renewal, fertility, and the agricultural cycle that still influences Japanese society despite urbanization. The Holi Festival in various regions involves processions, traditional performances, and community gatherings that maintain connections to seasonal rhythms that most urban dwellers have lost touch with in their daily lives. Summer brings festivals that serve as community cooling systems, both literally and figuratively. The heat and humidity of Japanese summers can be overwhelming, making summer festivals essential for maintaining social connections when the weather discourages outdoor activities. Fireworks festivals, or Hanabi Taikai, draw millions of participants to riverside locations for displays that combine technical precision with artistic expression, creating shared experiences that unite communities in appreciation of beauty and craftsmanship. The summer festival atmosphere includes food stalls, games, and entertainment that recreate traditional market environments in modern urban settings. Yukata, light summer kimono, make rare appearances as casual wear, transforming participants into visual connections to historical Japan while serving the practical purpose of keeping people cool in traditional fabrics designed for hot weather. Fall festivals celebrate harvest seasons with events that honor agricultural traditions, even in areas where farming has long since given way to urban development. These festivals maintain cultural connections to the land and seasonal cycles that provide psychological grounding in a society increasingly disconnected from natural rhythms. The autumn colors, or kuyu, provide another occasion for seasonal appreciation that reveals Japanese aesthetic values about beauty, timing, and shared experience. Like cherry blossom viewing, autumn leaf viewing involves community gatherings that combine natural beauty with social interaction, creating opportunities for relationships and conversations that might not occur in other settings. Winter festivals embrace the season rather than simply enduring it, with events that transform cold weather into opportunities for community building and cultural expression. Snow festivals in northern regions create temporary art installations from ice and snow that demonstrate technical skill and artistic vision, while providing reasons for people to venture outdoors during months when natural inclination might be to hibernate indoors. New Year celebrations in Japan reveal the intersection of religious traditions, family obligations, and cultural continuity that define Japanese approaches to time and change. The transition from old year to new involves rituals that cleanse spiritual debts, strengthen family bonds, and prepare participants for fresh starts with ceremonies that blend Shinto and Buddhist practices in ways that seem natural to participants but can appear contradictory to outsiders. Traditional tea ceremony represents cultural preservation in its most refined form, where every gesture carries meaning, and the preparation and consumption of tea becomes meditation on beauty, respect, and mindful attention to detail. These ceremonies maintain connections to aesthetic principles and social practices that originated centuries ago while providing contemporary practitioners with structured opportunities for reflection and cultural participation. The seasonal nature of Japanese festivals means that timing a visit to Japan can dramatically influence the cultural experiences available to visitors. Understanding festival calendars and seasonal rhythms can transform a tourist visit into cultural immersion that provides insights into values and practices that define Japanese society beyond its international image. Now let's talk about getting around in a country where the transportation system operates with precision that makes Swiss watches look sloppy, where being 3 minutes late is considered a significant delay, and where the network of trains, buses, and subways is so complex it makes the Tokyo Stock Exchange look like a simple vending machine. The Japanese rail system represents infrastructure development taken to levels that border on the supernatural. The Shinkansen bullet trains don't just run on time. They run so precisely on time that delays of more than 1 minute make national news and result in formal apologies from railway executives. These trains reach speeds of over 200 mm/h, while providing rides so smooth you can balance a coin on the windowsill for the entire journey. But the real revelation for most visitors isn't the famous bullet trains. It's the local transportation networks that connect every neighborhood, suburb, and rural area with efficiency that makes owning a car seem like an expensive hobby rather than a necessity. Tokyo's train and subway system alone includes over 280 stations connected by 13 different railway companies operating according to schedules coordinated with precision that would make air traffic controllers weep with admiration. The etiquette surrounding public transportation reveals cultural values about shared space, mutual consideration, and social harmony that extend far beyond simply getting from point A to point B. The unwritten rules about behavior on trains, no phone conversations, minimal talking, priority seating for elderly, and pregnant passengers create environments where strangers can share small spaces without conflict or discomfort. Rush hour in Japanese cities provides daily demonstrations of social cooperation under extreme conditions. The morning commute involves levels of crowding that would trigger claustrophobia in most people. Yet the system functions because everyone understands and follows rules about personal space movement and consideration for others that allow maximum numbers of people to coexist in minimum amounts of space. The uniformed staff who work at train stations perform their duties with levels of precision and courtesy that elevate customer service to performance art. Station attendants bow to departing trains, conductors announce stops with vocal inflections that convey respect for passengers, and cleaning crews transform dirty train cars into spotless transportation in time intervals measured in minutes rather than hours. JR passes for tourists provide unlimited travel on Japan, railways networks for fixed periods, creating opportunities for exploration that can transform expensive transportation into affordable adventure. These passes work because the rail network connects virtually every destination worth visiting, from major cities to remote hot spring towns hidden in mountain valleys that would be inaccessible without reliable public transportation. Regional transportation differences reflect local geography and culture in ways that make each area's transit system a reflection of community values and practical needs. Rural bus systems operate with flexibility and personal attention that urban networks can't provide, while city networks prioritize efficiency and capacity over individual passenger comfort. The integration between different transportation modes, trains connecting to buses, connecting to ferries, creates seamless travel experiences that eliminate the stress and uncertainty common in other countries' transportation systems. Timetables coordinate across companies and transport types, allowing travelers to plan complex journeys with confidence that connections will work as advertised. Work culture in Japan operates according to principles that can seem either admirably dedicated or dangerously obsessive, depending on your perspective and cultural background. The concept of lifetime employment, while less common than in previous generations, still influences workplace relationships and employee expectations in ways that create different approaches to career development and personal identity. The famous dedication to work quality and attention to detail that characterizes Japanese manufacturing extends to service industries and office environments where perfectionism is considered a professional virtue rather than a psychological disorder. This creates work environments where mistakes are rare, customer satisfaction is paramount, and continuous improvement is treated as a moral obligation rather than a business strategy. However, this dedication to excellence comes with costs that Japanese society is increasingly forced to confront. The phenomenon of karoshi, death from overwork, represents the extreme end of work culture taken to dangerous levels, while more common issues like stress, burnout, and work-life balance challenges affect millions of workers who struggle to maintain personal relationships and health while meeting professional obligations. The contrast between urban and rural lifestyles in Japan represents different approaches to balancing tradition with modernity, community with independence, and economic opportunity with quality of life. Urban areas offer career opportunities, cultural amenities, and social freedoms that attract young people from rural areas, while rural communities provide connections to nature, traditional practices, and social relationships that urban environments often struggle to maintain. Rural depopulation represents one of Japan's most significant long-term challenges, as young people migrate to cities for education and employment opportunities, leaving behind aging communities that struggle to maintain infrastructure and cultural traditions. This demographic shift influences government policies, economic development strategies, and social programs designed to revitalize rural areas while supporting urban growth. The transportation infrastructure that connects urban and rural areas serves as lifelines that allow people to maintain connections between different lifestyle choices. High-speed rail connections enable people to live in rural areas while commuting to urban jobs, while local transportation networks maintain access to services and opportunities for rural residents who choose to stay in their home communities. Speaking of iconic destinations, let's talk about the places that make Japan's tourism posters, but also the hidden corners that locals prefer to keep to themselves. Mount Fuji dominates the landscape and the imagination, but experiencing Japan's most famous mountain involves understanding that the best views often come from distance rather than proximity, and that timing, weather, and location can mean the difference between life-changing vistas and expensive disappointment. The area around Mount Fuji offers attractions that extend far beyond the mountain itself. The Fuji Five Lakes region provides resort destinations that combine natural beauty with recreational opportunities. Hot spring resorts that offer relaxation in settings of stunning natural beauty, and cultural sites that have drawn pilgrims and tourists for centuries. The climbing season is short and challenging, but the surrounding area provides year-round opportunities for appreciation and exploration. Kyoto represents cultural preservation on a scale that makes museum collections look like hobby exhibits. The ancient capital houses over 2,000 temples and shrines, each with its own history, architectural significance, and cultural importance. But Kyoto isn't a historical theme park. It's a living city where traditional culture continues to evolve while maintaining connections to practices and beliefs that originated over a millennium ago. The famous Fushimi Inari Shrine with its thousands of vermilion torii gates creates tunnel-like pathways up a mountainside that provide both physical exercise and spiritual journey. But visiting during peak tourist times means sharing narrow pathways with crowds that can transform meditative walks into traffic management challenges. Early morning or late afternoon visits provide opportunities for more contemplative experiences that allow appreciation of the spiritual and aesthetic purposes these sites were designed to serve. The Gion district in Kyoto offers glimpses of geisha culture that continue traditional entertainment arts in modern settings. But the neighborhood also represents gentrification challenges as tourism pressure threatens to overwhelm the residential and business communities that support traditional arts. Respectful tourism requires understanding that these are working neighborhoods where people live and work, not outdoor museums created for visitor entertainment. Tokyo's neighborhoods each offer distinct personalities and attractions that reflect different aspects of modern Japanese culture. Shibuya represents youth culture and consumer trends with shopping, entertainment, and social scenes that influence global fashion and lifestyle trends. Harajuku showcases alternative fashion and subcultures that demonstrate Japanese creativity in adapting and transforming international influences into distinctly Japanese expressions. Akihabara serves as the global center of electronics, anime, and otaku culture, but it also represents Japan's role in technological innovation and its influence on global entertainment industries. The district combines retail, entertainment, and cultural exhibition in ways that blur boundaries between commerce and community, creating spaces where shared interests create social connections among people who might not interact in other contexts. The anime and manga culture that originated in Japan now influences global entertainment, but experiencing it in its home context reveals cultural values and artistic traditions that international adaptations often lose. The attention to detail, narrative complexity, and artistic craftsmanship that characterize the best Japanese animation reflect broader cultural approaches to creativity and storytelling that extend far beyond entertainment into education, communication, and social commentary. Hidden gems throughout Japan offer alternatives to crowded tourist destinations while providing insights into regional cultures and local traditions that mainstream tourism often overlooks. Rural, hot spring towns provide relaxation and cultural experiences without the crowds and commercialization of famous resort areas. Mountain villages maintain traditional architecture and lifestyles that offer glimpses into historical Japan while serving contemporary communities. The Japanese garden tradition represents landscape design as artistic expression and spiritual practice, with techniques and aesthetic principles that influence garden design worldwide. But visiting gardens in Japan provides opportunities to experience these spaces as their designers intended, with seasonal changes, daily light variations, and contemplative purposes that require time and attention to fully appreciate. Island destinations throughout Japan offer tropical experiences, unique ecosystems, and cultural variations that demonstrate the diversity within Japanese territory. Okinawa provides subtropical beaches and distinct cultural traditions that reflect its history as an independent kingdom, while smaller islands offer opportunities for outdoor activities and cultural immersion away from mainland population centers. Now let's address the practical realities that make Japan consistently rank among the world's safest countries, where lost wallets get returned with cash intact, where violent crime rates are so low they make statisticians double-check their calculations, and where the biggest safety concern for most visitors is accidentally jaywalking in front of law-abiding locals who would never dream of crossing against a red light even when no traffic is visible in either direction. Japanese safety culture operates on principles of mutual responsibility and social cooperation that create environments where personal security is maintained through community vigilance rather than law enforcement presence. Crime rates in Japan are among the world's lowest, with violent crime so rare that single incidents can dominate news cycles for weeks, and property crime rates that make insurance companies wonder if they are necessary. The healthcare system in Japan provides universal coverage through a combination of employer-based insurance and government programs that ensure access to medical care regardless of economic status. The system emphasizes preventive care, regular health screenings, and early intervention approaches that contribute to Japan's status as one of the world's healthiest populations, with life expectancies that consistently rank among the highest globally. Medical facilities in Japan maintain standards of cleanliness, efficiency, and patient care that can make visits to doctors and hospitals surprisingly pleasant experiences rather than sources of stress and anxiety. The integration between traditional and modern medical approaches allows patients to access both cutting-edge treatments and time-tested therapies within the same healthcare system. Education in Japan operates according to principles that emphasize collective achievement, discipline, and respect for learning that produce high academic performance levels while creating social pressures that can be overwhelming for some students. The system combines rigorous academic standards with character development programs that teach social skills, responsibility, and cooperation, alongside traditional academic subjects. The examination system that governs admission to higher education creates competitive pressures that influence family decisions, student behaviors, and social relationships in ways that extend far beyond academic achievement. Success in education often determines career opportunities, social status, and life prospects to degrees that can seem extreme to observers from less education-focused cultures. International students in Japan navigate education systems that provide excellent academic opportunities while requiring adaptation to teaching methods, social expectations, and evaluation criteria that may be completely different from their home country experiences. Language barriers can complicate academic work, but the structured nature of Japanese education provides clear expectations and support systems for students willing to adapt to local approaches. Safety for international visitors extends beyond crime prevention to include natural disaster, preparedness, language assistance, and cultural guidance that help foreigners navigate unfamiliar situations with confidence. Tourist information services, multilingual signage, and emergency support systems provide safety nets that allow visitors to explore independently while knowing help is available when needed. The concept of omotenashi, hospitality without expectation of return, creates service environments where customer safety and satisfaction are treated as matters of professional pride rather than business obligations. This cultural approach to service means that problems are often anticipated and prevented rather than simply addressed after they occur. Finally, let's talk about the practical pathways for foreigners who want to transform tourist visits into long-term residence. Because Japan offers opportunities for international workers and students that can lead to permanent settlement for those willing to navigate visa requirements and cultural adaptation challenges that are complex but not insurmountable. Work visas in Japan are available for various skill levels and professional categories, from English teaching positions that require university degrees but not necessarily specialized training, to highly skilled professional visas for workers with advanced degrees and specialized expertise. The application processes require documentation, sponsorship from Japanese employers, and proof of qualifications that can take months to complete but provide legal pathways for long-term residents. English teaching remains one of the most accessible entry points for foreigners seeking work in Japan, with programs like JET, Japan Exchange and Teaching, providing structured opportunities for recent university graduates to gain international experience while contributing to Japanese education. Private language schools and conversation academies offer additional employment opportunities for qualified teachers willing to adapt to Japanese workplace culture and teaching expectations. The Startup Visa program represents newer opportunities for entrepreneurs willing to develop businesses that contribute to Japanese economic development while navigating regulatory requirements and cultural expectations that can be challenging for foreigners unfamiliar with Japanese business practices. These programs provide pathways for permanent residence for successful business developers, but require significant planning and cultural adaptation. Student visas offer opportunities for international education, while providing stepping stones toward work visas and long-term residence for graduates who find employment with Japanese companies. Japanese universities increasingly offer programs taught in English while providing language learning support that enables international students to develop the communication skills necessary for post-graduation employment. The challenge of long-term expat life in Japan involves balancing cultural adaptation with personal identity maintenance, developing language skills that extend beyond basic conversation to include professional and social communication, and building social networks that provide emotional support and practical assistance in navigating daily life in a culture that operates according to different social rules. Cultural integration for long-term residents requires understanding that adaptation does not mean abandoning personal cultural identity, but rather developing bicultural competence that allows comfortable navigation of both Japanese and international social environments. This process takes years rather than months and requires patience, flexibility, and willingness to accept cultural differences that may never feel completely natural. The expatriate community in Japan provides support networks, social opportunities, and practical assistance for newcomers, while creating cultural bridges that help foreigners maintain connections to their home cultures while adapting to Japanese society. These communities serve essential functions in helping international residents develop the social connections and cultural knowledge necessary for successful long-term residence. Housing for long-term foreign residents involves understanding rental practices, neighborhood characteristics, and cultural expectations that can be completely different from home country experiences. Guarantor requirements, key money payments, and lease conditions require navigation of systems designed for Japanese cultural norms but increasingly adapted to accommodate international residents. Career development for foreigners in Japan can offer opportunities for professional growth and cultural learning that provide unique qualifications and experiences valuable in global job markets. However, advancement often requires language skills, cultural understanding, and professional relationships that take time to develop and maintain. So, there you have it. Japan, in all its contradictory, fascinating, expensive, affordable, traditional, modern, confusing, and absolutely captivating glory. This is a country where you can spend $800 a month eating convenience store meals that taste better than restaurant food in most other countries, where you can live in a space smaller than most people's closets while feeling safer than you've ever felt in your life. And where following rules you don't understand somehow creates a society that actually works. Whether you're planning a visit or contemplating a permanent move, Japan offers experiences that will challenge your assumptions, expand your perspectives, and probably convince you that robot toilets are actually a pretty good idea. The key is approaching it with curiosity rather than expectations, flexibility rather than rigid plans, and appreciation for the fact that some places in the world still believe that doing things right is more important than doing things fast. Comment below if you're ready to try living on $800 in Japan. And don't forget to subscribe for more adventures in places where normal gets redefined on a daily basis. Trust me, once you've experienced a country where vending machines serve better food than most restaurants and where people bow to empty train cars, everywhere else is going to seem a little bit ordinary.